Tim McLemee came across some information a few years back which led to the resignation of a sitting Smith County judge. Now he is open about his ire and disdain for the incumbent district attorney in Van Zandt County who is seeking re-election. We sat down for 2 hours. There's not a lot of fat on the bone, it's all meat. I do want to mention to people to be patient with the sound. In a few areas it's great, but my loud mouth caused the mic to distort, so I tried to equalize everything. So hopefully you're understanding. If you're from Van Zandt County, you're an adapter and an overcomer. So the information's there, and it was so great that I didn't want to reshoot it. Enjoy.
Do you think in any possible way that he could have done something like that with his connections?
I don't think. So there's only one person I know of who I believe could do it. He is neither a friend or a supporter. In fact, he's very actively against me. But I don't know if he would do it because it would be perceived as helping me, but he might. I don't know. I don't know. That's been my only other thought besides Joe doing it himself. My only other thought would be that guy. But then I'm not accusing him of doing it. I don't know if he really has the ability to do it. He claims that he can get into anything. But
He was this?
his name is Tim McLemee.
I guess I'm the boogeyman in the night to Tonda, aren't I?
You're Tim McLemee, right?
McLemee, that's right.
Welcome to the Alexander Hour. We literally started speaking, a few days ago?
Yeah, just a few days ago.
I messaged you. For clarity, I messaged him to come on the show.
That's correct.
And I had access to this video. I had gotten audio I had gotten sent. For those that don't know, let's set the tone on that, what that is. That is Julie Franklin, who ran Van Zandt County Connect. When her page was hacked, that was her calling the incumbent DA of Van Zandt County, Honda Curry.
Correct.
Now listen, you're not a lawyer, I'm not a lawyer. But is it odd that someone with an actual complaint, like Julie, calls into a DA and she says she wasn't claiming you did it, but she dropped your name?
If that's not accusing me of something, and here's the irony to the thing. I've never met Julie. I have no idea who she is. I think I might have been a member of that Facebook group whenever that occurred. Let's assume I was. But this is just another example of, I suppose I live in Tonda's head because of our dislike for one another. That if Tonda Curry would throw my name out there like that, and this one got back to me, how many times does she throw my name out there and accuse me of things that I don't know about? So this one just accidentally came back to me. Miss Franklin was smart enough to record the conversation, and then it got shared to me. Had that not occurred, I would have never known I was being accused of something. And for the record, I can't hack into things. I'm not a hacker. I work in the forensic industry. Part of what I do is forensics. That's not hacking. I don't hack whatsoever. I hate email just like everybody else. I can get locked out of my Facebook just like the next person does. So
it's wild to me, though. Like, let's say someone that didn't live here, right? Let's say someone is on trial for something and calls the DA to say, hey, this was done to me, this was done to me. And she just randomly throws out someone's name. Well, I'm not accusing him, but here's his name. She gave Julie everything but your address.
Yeah, exactly. And if Julie would have asked, she would have given the address. But this isn't the first time Tonda's done that. Tonda and I have a long dislike for one another.
Well, let's start peeling back the layers on that. And to preface, if you've never seen any of the Van Zandt County Forever series, you should go watch it. It's no shock, no surprise that during election season that the Republican on Republican hate is at a fever pitch right now, especially in the county. But the reason I have you on is all this Van Zandt County drama was chugging along. The epicenter of that was a private citizen, Big John's pissed that there are casinos here in Van Zandt County. He wants them closed. So I think that is the focal point, and that's all we care about. And then here comes Tim McLemee riding in, and you didn't give any conspiracy theory, or maybe I heard this. You came out with worse stuff on her as actual court documents from, well, you can explain. You put them out and you said, hey, I want you to resign. You're a fraud, you're this or that. But that was the foundation. So could you go into detail? Like, what's the letter?
And for the people that don't know me, so let me just give whoever watches this an idea. I'm just Tim McLemee. I'm a product of Van ISD, graduated Van in 88, went to work for Van Zandt County Sheriff's Office in 89 as a jailer. I was 19 years old, and I served over 22 years in law enforcement. I worked at the Sheriff's Department, went out on patrol here as a deputy when I was 21 years old. Pat Jordan was a sheriff. That's about 91, somewhere in there. And it was great back then. I loved the Sheriff's Department. I loved being a deputy. We had a lot of fun back then. Our hands wasn't tied like the guys are now. Then I left and spent about 4 something years with the Texas Narcotic Control Program, which is a narcotic agent position. And when Leslie Pointer Dixon was the district attorney, I was filing drug cases in Van Zandt County, and she offered me a position as an investigator because David Hammonds was taking the police chief job for Canton, which gave me the ability to come home. I had 2 small kids at home, and living in the narcotics world, it's just a tough life. You're never going to be home. So that's how I ended up at a district attorney's office. And then I stayed there for 11 years. And I absolutely love a district attorney's office. To me, that was the greatest law enforcement job I ever really had, because the way that it should work, not the way it's working now. Tonda's got a train wreck up there, which is a lot of my issue with her, stems from spending a decade with Leslie Pointer Dixon and then a year with Chris Martin, who's now our district judge. But I had to go make a living. Van Zandt County couldn't put my kids through college. So I had an opportunity to go to work for an attorney in Tyler named Buck Files, and I listened to him. I retired early. I've handled all of Buck's stuff pretty much for him, and then started my own forensic work. And the bulk of my clients are attorneys. What I do for a living, it's kind of hard to, there's no one certain thing I do. Law firms call me when they have a problem and we figure it out. But in the process,
Let's hit pause for a sec. You fix problems for lawyers, which trickles down to their clients. Basically, their client has a problem. Tim, we need to call in the cavalry, and you bring your special skill set in. Because I see on your Facebook page, it uses the word forensic a lot. So for someone like me that doesn't know what that is, and for the viewers, what are your capabilities? What can you do? Because she's saying that she thinks you could hack, and that she threw your name out there.
Hacking is nothing in our industry whatsoever. So part of what I do is forensic data recovery. And I did my first computer crime in 1997 as a narcotic agent. So I saw the writing on the wall. Computers were the future. Historically in law enforcement, the polygraph examiners, and I followed their path. The polygraph examiners, the government would train them. They would, get real good at it, build up their CV, their resume, and then they'd go out on their own and make a better living. So I thought, okay, if they can do it, I'm going to try and do it with computers. And iPhones were just, beginning then. So the bulk of anything forensic is going to be digital data, recovering deleted and hidden data from computers, cell phones, any digital media. I do a lot of cell phone tower triangulation. I track people with their digital footprint. And there's still I still do some work for the government. I was an expert on a Smith County capital murder where I put the defendant at the home, and I was able to narrow down the actual time of the murder to within like a minute and a half based on the digital data that the guy had and what I collected from the home. And he's on death row. So, it works. But as I went to work for Buck Files and some other attorneys, that expanded. So I took my background in doing investigations, even when they didn't have digital data, and I now use it for my attorney clients. So I talk very general about what I do for work. I still believe in being a silent professional. So I don't cut up work. I don't talk about cases or my clients or the facts of anything. Um, and I won't even name a lot of the attorneys I work for. In my world, if you talk, you're broke. Nobody's going to hire you if you can't keep a secret. And that's just the evil necessity. I guess some think that maybe it's, I'm a bad person because I hide secrets. I don't hide anything. I just follow the law, and I'm very ethical about what I do. So if there's a non-disclosure and everything I do has NDAs in it, we're not going to break it. Um, there's, and I've worked for some great attorneys. One that I wish I would have known earlier in my career that I got to spend about a year working with was Joe Jamel out of Houston, the famous, if you ever been to University of Texas football field, Jamel Field. And everything that you hear about him, even this YouTube video of the Texas deposition where they get cussing each other and want you to fist fight. Everything you heard about Joe, about his anger, his meanness, his cantankerousness is true. I thought the world of it. I just wish I would have had more time to work with him before he got sick. But and he sent me and another guy all over the nation taking care of stuff for him. So working at that level and for those type of attorneys, you have to cross T's, dot I's, keep your mouth shut, and get it done. There's no second place. So
Would it be too much to for a guy like me to say that reminded me of the term like a fixer? Like you're a Swiss Army knife for an attorney.
it is, and I've had attorneys introduce me as look. And I think Bucks was the first one that did it. He's told clients that he handles the legal work, I handle the dirty work. Well, the dirty work's not necessarily illegal. I'm not going to do anything illegal. Period. I don't break the law, but I don't talk either. And a lot of people, they think that we're out there doing something illegal when we're not. We're going to follow the law. I'm going to follow it to a T. Now, I may be in the gray area. If there's a loophole, that's fair game. That's the way our legal system works. Don't hate on me.
That comes with experience, right? Figuring
Absolutely.
out the path
Absolutely.
of least
Don't say-
resistance.
Don't hate the player, hate the game.
That's right.
That's the truth. And our entire judicial system's like that.
Well, speaking of, that's a good segue because don't hate the player, hate the game. When I posted that I was going to have you on, and I wanted to post it beforehand because let's face it, I don't have a ton of people watching these videos. I think that you will be the impetus that gets people watching. But
in a positive way.
But when I posted, hey, I'm bringing Tim on, and these are some of the things we want to talk about, I got some messages like, I'll use some of the words they use: asshole, smart, crazy, doesn't know what he's doing, has an axe to grind. And the axe to grind thing always makes me kind of chuckle because I can think of 10 axes that I'm grinding here in my own personal life in my head. So we all have on some level. But I think I had a question when I saw your letter come out. It said, hey, and we'll get into the weeds of what it actually is. But why now? Is it because it's an election time? Or is it because she dropped your name like that in the video, or why not do it before?
Well, and I'll address several of those things. So, being at a district attorney's office, and when I was there for the 11 years, the investigators are the bridge between your local law enforcement agencies and the DAs, the prosecutors. Okay. So if you're the bridge, that means you're carrying good information, you're doing good things with law enforcement, but you're also the bearer of bad news. So whenever I walk into the sheriff's department, like for example, when Pat Burnett was sheriff, he was shaking his head. He never knew if I was coming with good or bad news, or if there was a problem. And I'm very critical of law enforcement. I'm honorably retired. I have an honorable retired peace officer status. I retired as a master peace officer with an instructor's license. So I went as high up as I could with certifications. But you're the bearer of bad news a lot of times, and I am critical of law enforcement and a lot of the ways that they handle things and or handle themselves. Now, a lot of these officers that you meet that they say Tim's a smart ass. Well, I may be a smart ass, but I was probably being a smart ass for a legitimate reason, and I have pet peeves I cannot stand within law enforcement. And a lot of guys that know me know them, that I cannot stand an out of shape, unprofessionally dressed police officer. I don't care what agency you're with. If you're out of shape to the point you can't even defend yourself, how are you going to defend the general public? How are you going to protect my family if there's a problem there and I'm not there? You're not. And now we have video cameras everywhere, and the world can see these out of shape officers. They can't even draw a taser, which is another problem. They're too dependent on tasers. When I went out on patrol as a deputy at 21 years old, I had a 686 revolver, an 870 shotgun, and a flashlight about a foot and a half long full of batteries. So that was also a tool. That's all we had. I didn't have body armor. There was no backup. If I'm fighting somebody in Rolling Oaks
It's
or up in
you.
Wills Point, it's me. Maybe Hunt County's got a deputy close, but the chances are Van Zandt County Dispatch back then wasn't even going to be able to hear me because we had so many dark spots that our radios didn't work.
Reminds me of my Army days. It's like a 9mm Beretta and a baton and some will
Yeah,
and
that's right.
fortitude, right?
If
Go
you
out
want to
and
go
do it.
home at night, you've got to learn to fight. You've got to learn to take care of yourself, and you've got to take it serious. Because when I worked in the jail, going in the jail at 19 was the best thing I ever did. I learned more working in that jail, and it was on top of the courthouse. I learned more about how to deal with grown men, not just convicts, but grown men, and how to be straightforward, don't lie, don't play games, and don't hesitate to throw down. If you have to fight, you're going to have to fight. And as a jailer up there, I worked night shift. So I had to work for a month as a volunteer to be trained on day shift. And when I started 4 to midnight in the jail, I was the only one there. It was me and 40 inmates. That's it. So there's no backup coming either. The dispatcher's 3 stories down.
It's you or me, right?
That's right. So, fortunately, we had, when I first went to work there, they were called building tenders, but we had to quit using that name and call them trustees. But there was times that your only backup is another inmate. And don't think for a second they won't try you. They will try you. Those inmates will every chance they get. So you grow up real fast there. But I learned a lot from them. Matter of fact, some of the things I carry to this day, I learned from inmates that were trustees up there. And some of them are from right here from Grand Saline, Texas.
Good old Grant
Oh
Saline.
yeah, Kenneth Don Mosley, Ernest Harris, all those guys, and they're probably all dead now. But uh, I didn't play games. I've never been a game player. I've never been a grab ass guy, and I learned a lot from them that I carry on to this day. How to try and deal with people and talk to people. So that I grew up in Van Zandt County, literally working for Van Zandt County in that courthouse, and I want to talk more about the problems in Van Zandt County, not just Tonda. There's a lot more to the county than Tonda Curry, but then as we move forward to the other parts um, that you brought up, am I smart? Well, I'm smart enough to figure this out and make money doing it, but I'm not a genius.
That might have been a relative of yours that emailed me to get
Yeah,
that good
yeah.
positive one in.
I'll take that if I have a relative that would give me that compliment.
I don't know if I have any relatives that would give me that
Most
compliment.
of my relatives say, yeah, he's a smart ass, but I really try not to be. And a lot of people mistake my directness and how straightforward I am as me being arrogant or something. I'm really not. I have no intentions of being like that.
Well, let's real quick. Let's get on a tangent of speaking of direct and speaking of the district attorney. Her name's Tonda Curry. How did you come to own the website tondacurry.com, and what year did you get that thing?
I've owned tondacurry.com since I believe 2020. Her and I, we ran head into each other. It started in 2018, and I have a ton of emails and communications back and forth. So let's just address the elephant in the room with Tonda Curry right now. Then we'll talk about
sidebar. This what I think he's going to address I got a lot of emails about saying, call Tim out on this. And here's why I liked getting you to come in is I was on the phone with you less than 30 seconds and you committed to this and said you can ask me whatever the hell you want to ask me.
Absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
who doesn't like that? So all you that emailed me and called me, I appreciate it. Keep them coming. But Tim and I had already worked out the logistics literally in the first minute of the call. He's like, I'm in and I'll say whatever I need to say.
Yeah, and anybody that will call you and want to say something negative about me, hey, they call me. They don't have to hide behind. You got a problem? Call me. My phone's posted everywhere.
They would have already called
Oh
you.
yeah,
They would have already called. Yeah.
They're not going to own anything. The vast majority of haters out there and people that are going to talk in the background, they're never going to put their name on nothing. And to me, if you do not own your work, what good is your work? Whether it's a case you're working on, whether you're exposing an issue, or regardless what it is in life.
Well, let's
you're
get to
not
the
willing
time.
own it. So
Let's
go-
get to the time to, like you said, you guys had a head-on collision
That's right.
essentially.
So in 2018, I had a law firm contact me and said, "Hey, we want to introduce you to some clients. They need a consultant for software that's going to be involved with some legal challenges." And I'm like, "Okay, great. I'm interested." So I go meet with them, and what they're wanting to do is they're wanting to create a software platform that is 100% legal in Texas, that is a skill game. So it started when they first started, they were involved in sweepstakes, which sweepstakes is a convoluted mess. Th- some call it donation sweepstakes, and that's all.
For clarity here, we're talking about game
About
rooms.
games. Yeah,
Game
that's
rooms.
right.
So
and
you were
since
hired as a
games-
consultant.
That's right. Since games are a big issue right now, well, let's go back and talk about how it started. And hey, I'll fall on the sword. I was, involved as a consultant for a software company. So my what I was to do was to assist them in ensuring that all elements of chance was removed, and could we make sure that we could prove it in a form of white papers and the forensics and everything, because they wanted to deploy the games. But they knew that in Texas law is really pretty clear. If there's 1% chance in a game, it's illegal. It can have no chance, none. So if you're looking at essentially a one dimension game, that's kind of simple, but no game's one dimension anymore. Some of them have thousands of things going on at once. So in 18, I'm working with them and they're beginning to deploy some games here. Well, the only way I was going to get involved was through total transparency. We're not going to hide nothing. If it's legal, then we give any government agency that wants it everything. We give them the keys to the key. Even built in a back door for law enforcement, what we call a law enforcement portal. So that way, don't just take my word for it. Bring your own people, sit down. Here, you have full access to everything. So in the beginning, when we started that, Chris Martin was district attorney, and they had began some sweepstakes. He felt like that the AG's office wasn't clear on their ruling on it, and he wanted an AG's opinion. I totally support it. Emails even support that in all of our email chains. So I contacted the clients. I said, look, they want AG's opinion. So my advice is you need to just shut it down, get the AG's opinion while we continue on the skill, because they will want to transition from sweepstakes to skill. They did. They immediately complied, same day, which then we really put all of our focus in with a company out of Atlanta, Georgia, and their engineers. So I was back and forth to Atlanta some, and they even sent their people up here. Their people met with Tonda Curry, not just me, but
These are the head guys that own this software
That's
company.
correct. That's correct. The actual main company, and it's a massive company. And these aren't backwoods, people. This is a major company. So whenever they came in, again, total transparency. Anything you want, anything you need, you've got. So they were able to provide, and I was able to provide enough information on the skill that there was no elements of chance in. So the guys that owned the one company, which was operating a facility in Midway, which is on 64 near Smith County line, that was kind of the beta testing center. It was a large area, and you could put a ton of equipment in there, and you have to beta test. And again, everything was transparent, doors wide open, anything you want. If you have a question, we'll send you the engineers. Matter of fact, they even offered to send the DAs to anybody, law enforcement, go to Atlanta, sit down, bring your experts. Nobody wants a legal problem. Nobody in at that Atlanta group that I was working for, no, none of us wanted to go afoul. So we were very, very transparent in everything we did. So fast forward 18, Tonda becomes DA. Chris Martin becomes the district judge, moves over. So I'm still communicating with Tonda, as needed on it. And then we have a sheriff's election start. Dale Corbett was running for sheriff. Dale and I have a fundamental disagreement in how law enforcement works. And I supported him his first campaign, and I just could not do it a second time based on events that I've seen and experienced. So I supported Steve Hendricks for sheriff. I was one of Steve's first supporters, and I really started pushing Steve.
Did you catch hell for that, or did you and Dale have an actual physical blow up, or was it just assumed that you guys?
Oh no, Dale and I exchanged pleasantries more than once. I'm not intimidated by a sheriff or a DA. Nobody should be intimidated by 'em. Nobody should be intimidated by law enforcement. You're there to serve the public. People forget that. But Dale and I had a major blow up over an issue that is protected under attorney-client privilege, so I'm not going into it. But it was very nasty, and I could not support Dale. On one hand, I understood how Dale got boxed in that corner, so my intent wasn't to just shank Dale to pieces. I just wanted a different sheriff, so I started to support Steve Hendricks. Well, that ran me afoul of Dale and some of his little minions. Now, some of these police officers are going to be messaging you, talking negative about me. That's fine. They're probably some of those same minions.
Too late. Too late.
Yeah,
Some others have already beat you to it.
I'm not, the thing is, they'll talk behind my back, but not a one of them will step up to me. That's the caliber of these people are. If I have a problem with somebody, I'm going to go straight to them. We're going to just end it. Let's get it over with. We can either agree to disagree, which I use that saying all the time, or however you want to handle it, but let's end it. But that's not a way a lot of people work. And a side note for people who do not understand law enforcement, there's a misconception that there's this big blue curtain and everybody behind this big blue curtain is helping each other. No, no, no. Behind that blue curtain is a knife fight. There is no more, how do I even say this? You will not find another occupation that has more backstabbing, lying, untrustworthy people than other officers in law enforcement. Not everybody. The vast majority of police officers are good people, but it doesn't take but one or two in one agency to taint the entire dadgum agency.
Is that because you think guys are trying to climb the ladder and make a
Absolutely.
name?
Absolutely.
Well, what's the ceiling on? Let's say you're a deputy, a county deputy. How ambitious can you be, sheriff?
Well, and I don't know how Sheriff Bridger has his set up, but normally, or when I was there, you was a deputy, then you'd make sergeant, from sergeant lieutenant, from lieutenant, if there was only one captain back then, captain, and then chief and sheriff. So it really is not a top heavy. You should have a lot more people on the bottom, but unfortunately, some of the past administrations, well, Dale's, they did end up pretty top heavy. You had more, chiefs than you had Indians. So, and back to the connection with Tonda. So Dale and Tonda are close. And I'm saying Dale, and it's not necessarily Dale everything, it's a couple of his minions, as I call them. And so
These would be guys that were deputies at the
that's
time.
correct. They'll hold, none of them were just field deputies, they were all in administration. So we start going back and forth with the political crap. Again, to me, it's just typical politics. Um, and then I learned that a couple of Dale's minions have devised a plan to shut me up because I'm causing Dale a lot of problems now in his campaign.
Let's elaborate on that for a second. Compare it to what you're doing now as far as publicly calling out. Were you
I was doing the
there?
same thing.
There
Absolutely.
was the internet. I'm trying to think, what year was this? Were you able to post stuff then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. I
So
was.
so you've done this before when you feel obligated to the public, like, hey,
Absolutely. I have. And it's not just Van Zandt County. If you Google me, you're going to find out a lot about me. Um, I work in Smith County. My office is downtown Tyler. And just, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, I have a lady come to me and she says, look, I don't know if you can help me, but this county judge is sexting me all the time. And I don't know how to get rid of it. And I thought it was a joke. I thought, nah, one of my buddies sent this woman to me.
but you're in private
I'm
practice essentially at this
That's right.
point.
Yeah, I have a private investigator's license. I have to do what I do for a living. So I kind of took her, with a grain of salt because I have all kinds of people call me all the time. But I said, okay, show me. Well, she opened up her Facebook Messenger and shot the county judge a message, and he fired one right back. And within a few seconds, it went to triple X. Now, that's interesting. Where's he at right now? Well, I made a phone call, which is simple. Just see, hey, is the judge available? No, he's in court. All right. So the judge is on the bench sexting. Now that's in Smith County. I have a problem with that. I have an ethical problem with that.
What kind of cases is he overseeing? Like
Well,
something that could put people in prison for a while?
Yes, the one that finally got him was he was in Austin. He was on a board down there, the Board of Judicial Conduct. I think's the name of it. It's where when judges get in trouble, they have to go before this board of other judges to determine have they done anything wrong. If they have, what's their proper punishment, which could even mean being removed from office. So essentially, on that day, we set up at my office in Tyler a computer that was screen recording everything just to see would the county judge actually be sexting while he's on the bench. Well, he was, and it was very graphic. And I was able to determine exactly what other judges were in front of him fighting for their careers. There were judges in front of him fighting for their life, essentially. And he's on the
While he's sexting.
Yeah. So there's a whole group of them up there. He's sitting at the far end of the tables where, he has nobody to his right, only to his left, if I recall correctly. And he's sitting there sexting this girl, not knowing that everything's being recorded. And there's judges in front of him fighting for their life. Now, to me, frankly, that pisses me off.
That's wild from a
If I'm in a courtroom and I'm fighting for my career, I'm fighting for my life, I'm also doing that for my family. At least show me the respect of paying attention. Even if you don't rule in my favor, at least, patronize me.
Was the judge also married at the time and this wasn't his
Yes.
wife? Okay.
Yes, that's correct. So once once that finished, and we did a trap on him, we had him send some photographs specific that we could, confirm and where he was at and different things. So once I finished that, I'm like, okay, I have this explosive in my hand. What do I do with it? Of course, I could have done nothing with it, and nobody paid me. Nobody hired me to do this.
Because he technically hasn't done anything illegal, but what he's done could cause him to get removed from the
That's
bench.
Right. And that's something that in the court system, in the courtroom, if there is ever a place in our nation where the ethics must be at the highest, it's in a courtroom. It doesn't matter what's going on in there. So
Because they're snatching people's freedom in there potentially. So yes.
it can be so much. So then I contacted a friend of mine at KLTV, and I have even to this day I still help KLTV. They'll call me to assist them on understanding some technology or something. So I said, look, I've got this explosive in my hands. I don't really know what's best to do with it. And one of them came over and we start talking about it. And I'm like, look, I have to own this. If I did this, if I don't own it, it takes away so much of the validity to it. And being anonymous don't work for me. And I
I
know
can tell.
that's a
Yeah.
big thing on Facebook right now. These anonymous posts. I'll never do an anonymous one. If I'm going to open my mouth or say something, my name's going to be attached. And sometimes it bites me in the butt. But hey, I'm a big boy. I deal with it. So that was the decision, and I made that decision. And KOTV, we talked through everything and decided no. The only way that people would take this serious is if the person who did it will explain it and explain themselves. So I went on KOTV and I walked them through what happened. They confronted the judge about it. He immediately resigned, and he's now in private practice. He was a lawyer. Of course, we don't never see each other, luckily. But the point is, Tonda Curry, Dale Corbett, they're not my first rodeos on it. And I'm very, very conscientious a about court, because to me a courtroom is that is the top, that is the bar. It's whenever you get in those courtrooms, it's not just people fighting for their lives. There are people in there fighting for every penny they have. I've been in nasty lawsuits working on them where it's wills, estates, probates, everything in the world. If you've ever been in a courtroom, you want everybody in there to be doing their job and paying attention,
Especially the judge.
especially the judge. That's right. And especially the district attorney. And we'll get to her later. So back to Dale, just so you know that Dale wasn't my first rodeo. But anyway, so Dale's couple of minions, they come up with this plan, and they're trying to figure out how to shut me up. And I'd exchanged pleasantries with one of them a couple of times. Um, so I knew that he was going to try some crap. So I get called from a company, and they're like, "Look, we have." They were connected to the software company out of Midway. They had another location in Zandt County that they had just started trying to, get on the ground. They had a robbery there. And they're like, "Hey, will you help us on this robbery? We don't know if it's an inside deal or not." And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. It's easy enough. It's probably an inside job. Most times they are." And I knew that they had cameras everywhere. So I go over there, I go up there to it, and I immediately, it's not an inside job. I look at the camera. And about an hour before the robbery occurred, a man had came in wearing the exact same pants, all cut up as the robber.
Oh,
So I was like, "All right, come on, guys, this is child's play here."
this is the gang that couldn't shoot straight. I'm
Yeah,
going to solve
exactly.
this in a day.
This should be something simple. It was a robbery. The guy's a convicted felon. He's out of Will's Point, and matter of fact, I think I sent him to prison in the '90s on a drug case. So I'm like, all right, this is easy enough. But Dale Corbett was not about to do anything for me, period. So I called the clients back, and I'm like, all right, this is going to be simple. I even know who the guy is. I've already got his phone number. And they're like, all right, well, do whatever you think's right. I said, well, let me just see if I can talk him into a recovery of some kind. So I called the guy. I said, look, man, I know you just robbed that place. And, they want their money back, obviously. And he and I go back and forth. And spending years in narcotic service, you learn to talk that street talk. And there's an entire different language out there. And he knew who I was immediately. So, unbeknownst to me, he's an informant for the sheriff's department under Dale Corbett.
The plot thickens.
The plot thickens. That's right. Now I've got one of their informants pinned down in a pinch. So that gives them more reason to jackal me. So they tried to spin some crap around. It didn't work. It blew up because I document everything. I mean, I'm a note taking fool. And I'm real conscientious about everything that I do and every step that I make. So I was in Tyler. The guy had already actually give some money back to the clients. And but he's just playing games in. So I'd called the clients. I was in my office in Tyler. And I like, look, this is as far as it's going to go. You know, the sheriff's office isn't going to help you. They done made that clear. They don't care. And I still didn't know
So
it was on the
backtrack
phone
for a
video.
second, not to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
You're telling me there's an actual robbery on film, and
Exactly.
because of politics and because I don't like Tim, who works for said game room,
Yep.
they're just going to be like,
That's exactly correct.
screw it,
Yes.
their problem.
Yes. And everything that I was doing, I had documented. So then the last day, I'm in Tyler, and we decided just wash your hands. It is what it is. I called the guy back, or he called me, and I'm fisting, I'm just telling him to go pound sand. But he gets to talking, and I blow him off. But here's the funny part. Here's the wild part. And I'll email you the documents. I'll email you the whole thing. He messes up. He thought he hung up the phone from me, and he didn't. And I'm listening to the phone, and guess whose voice I hear in the background talking, giving instructions, giving actual orders to law enforcement.
Dale or one of his minions.
Tonda Curry.
Tonda Curry.
Tonda Curry.
I was wrong.
And I fronted her on it.
Because she's elected DA at that point.
And not to get off on a rabbit trail, but Leslie Pointer Dixon and Chris Martin both had it right, in my opinion. DA stay in the office and prosecute. Investigators go out in the field. If a DA or an ADA goes out in the field, they become a witness to the crime. So it causes a big problem if your prosecutor is also a witness, they can't prosecute the crime. They end up having to testify in it. That's why you have DA investigators. So, like Leslie Pointer Dixon told me multiple times, her saying was she made the conscious decision to be a prosecutor and ask questions. I made the conscious decision to go in as an investigator and answer questions. That's how it works, and that's how it should work, but not with Tonda. And I have a major issue with Tonda and her going out in the field all the time. She does it to this day. As we're doing this, she's probably out in the field trying to play police.
So she's brand new. Let's backtrack for a sec. So she's brand new in office at this point,
Correct.
and she comes to the realization that, hey, I've got an informant here that's in a pinch, and we really want to take down that game room. We don't want to see this guy go, so let me coach him and make it go away. Am I getting close?
I have no idea what her train of thought really was, other than the fact she was going to cover for Dale Corbin or his agency. Okay. And again, when I say Dale, I'm talking about either him or most of the time it was his couple of his minions out there.
Well, naturally, I think it's always great if a DA and the sheriff's office are harmonious, right, and they work together.
Absolutely. So they should have a great working relationship. But when a DA starts doing unethical crap because I'm affecting the sheriff's reelection campaign, that's nasty. That's as unethical.
Well, it's like a TV episode that you see that happens somewhere else, but here it is literally happening right in front of your own eyes.
Oh, yeah. When I heard her voice in the background, I got to laughing. So, and I fronted her. I'm not scared of Tonda Curry, and she knows it. And I'm not intimidated by her.
How well did you know her before that situation?
She was just a defense attorney, and she wasn't a very good one. She hopped around a lot, and she's been at a ton of different jobs, doing different things. She's tried everything from real estate to, I think, gun store owner or whatever. If you look at her report, of course, being a PI, I have access to a ton of information about her, and she's just all over the place. But at that point in time, I'd never ran her background because I knew that she was trying to protect Dell, but I didn't know how far she would go. Well, that clearly told me she's going to go way beyond the line. She's going to get plumb over in the dark.
But it hadn't even gotten ugly yet. It was
no. We're still getting there. So anyway, I sent her an email with an entire report, the report I'd sent my clients, including the part I heard her on the audio, and I confronted her about it. Crickets. Nothing. She has no reasonable explanation.
To this day?
Yeah, no, she's not going to. So then I thought, all right, well, that's just a one-off thing. we'll get through this election. Maybe she'll simmer down. So the election proceeds, and we're moving forward with it some. And then there was another event that occurred. This event is one I can barely talk about because there's a federal agency with 3 digits that got involved in it and still are to some degree. But one of these minions of Dale Corbin's was at the FBI office in Tyler and saw something. What he saw, he shouldn't have seen. I'm trying to figure out how to put all this without it.
This was a deputy.
This is one of the 2 minions I was talking about. What he sees, he immediately goes to the person. It's a video. He immediately goes to the person that made the video and tells them, and then drags me into it.
A civilian. He told a civilian.
That's correct, a civilian. I get a phone call from the civilian one night. 6 hours, almost right at 6 hours from the time that the minion was at the FBI office and seen it. So this guy calls me. He's mad. He's threatening me.
This is a bad guy.
This is a bad guy. That's right. So, of course, I get extremely upset with the minion in Canton. And the FBI and I had a long conversation. It wasn't real pleasant either. So I confront Tonda about that. I send Tonda and Dale an email laying out everything this man done. They should have fired him. Matter of fact, he should have been arrested because he totally blew up a major thing going on that to this day, could cause me problems with these people. And my part in it was very, very minor, but still, he saw my name, and that was enough for him to run with it. So I sent Tonda the entire report of everything that happened, even from the FBI agent involved, who fell on the sword and said, "Tim, we screwed up." None of this had anything to do with Van Zandt County. It's the crazy thing. What he read and what he saw had nothing at all to do with Van Zandt County.
But your name stuck
But
out
my
because
name's in it because of the overall complexity of what was going on with the FBI.
yeah, you're a sticker burr right now. Like you're a pain in the ass.
And he thought that he had me nailed and it was going to cause me a lot of problems, and he did. I mean, now I've got some real bad guys upset because what he said and what the truth was is 2 different things. He took it totally out of context. In the course of what I do for a living, I have to deal with federal law enforcement and state law enforcement at times. And it's always at the request of the attorney I'm working for. So it's not uncommon for me to be talking to the FBI on behalf of my attorneys. Again, when I was at the DA's office, I was the bridge between the DA and the law enforcement. Well, working in private practice, I'm still a bridge between defense attorneys and law enforcement at times. So that one there, that run me hot. The robbery was bad enough. They're not going to prosecute a convicted felon that committed a robbery, technically an armed robbery, because he's one of their informants.
And because they don't like you.
And because they don't like me because I'm causing them political problems. So I told my whole family after that, and I said, look, they're going to make a move on me. They're going to try something. They've got to shut me up. So what did I do? I turned the heat up on Dale. I'm like, okay, if you're going to come at me, I'm going to give you a reason to. And sure enough, Dale Corbin announced his reelection at Doc Collins on a Monday. Friday, they're going to have this big bust out. And what a bust out is whenever you get a bunch of people together, a bunch of officers, and you've got search warrants or arrest warrants or both, and you go out and you try and execute all of them essentially at one time.
All simultaneously.
Pretty much, or within the same day, depending on jurisdictions and all. So that Friday, I'm at my office. I get a phone call from a guy going down Interstate 20, and he's like, "Hey, there's this place up on Interstate. I think it's got games in it. They're raiding it." I was like, I don't know who has it. I don't care. I don't have a dog in that fight. I'm a consultant. I own nothing. I do not own a game. I do not own a game room. I don't know any of that.
Because even if you consult, right? If you consulted for me, you're still not taking the action. I'm the one taking
No,
the action as the owner. So you're guiding them, but they actually pulled the trigger on the game rooms.
If I show you how to work some software that you purchase, or I help you understand it, and then you use that software maliciously, how am I related to what you did maliciously? That's same as me saying, "Hey, I'll show you how to use Proton encrypted email," and then you go commit crimes using Proton encrypted email. I had nothing to do with that, but they were trying to shut me up. So on, I think it was June the 23rd, 2019, I am at my home. I live in Smith County at the time. I'm at my home and, or I'm headed home. Let me back up. I'm headed home from Tyler and I look over on the side of the road and I see a green and white Tahoe with police on the side of it, or sheriff. And I thought, we're too far from the border. It's not Border Patrol. We're in Smith County. That's Zandt County. They're only a couple miles from my house. Now I'm already on alert for Dale's crap or his minions crap. So I go to the house and I think, all right, Tim, don't don't take a chance because you can't trust them. And I put my dog in the bathroom, left my door open from the garage, and then I had some other stuff to do on the place. And my property backed up to a bunch of family's property too. So I parked my car in the garage that I drive, and I got an old farm truck, and I went on back up on a hill where we were doing a bunch of land clearing. I was just gonna run the backhoe, and just spend the day up there the rest of the evening. And in case Dale and them tried something, I wouldn't be technically at my home or on my property, but I could see it. Here they come right up my stinking driveway. I thought, you son of I mean,
Sirens and lights going, the whole
well,
pomp and
no
circumstance.
sirens or that, but they come flying in there, and I'm like, good God, you idiots. You stupid idiots. You're picking a fight, is what you're doing. All over politics. So I sat up there on the hill and I watched them, and I knew they were running hot because I'd left the door open for them. To this day, they assume somebody tipped me off. Nobody tipped me off. They parked on the side of a public road on the way to my home from Tyler.
You had already spotted
I'd
them.
already seen them and already suspected Dale was going to try some crap on me. So Tonda was 100% in on attempting to use malicious prosecution against me. And if she would do that to me, an honorably retired peace officer, I served 22 years. I never had one complaint, not one complaint against me. And I had a very good reputation in the legal community. I'm working as an expert for DA's offices, helping them prosecute crimes. But this is all over nasty politics in Zandt County, of all places. So I sat up there and I called my dad. I said, "Hey, I got some visitors down at the house. You want to go down there and talk to them?" And he's like, "All right, I'll go down there." So he gets down there, and Joe Carter was there. Joe's the former sheriff that was appointed, but Joe and I had worked together on patrol in the 90s. He was a game warden here, so I knew Joe very well. And I called Joe on his cell phone. I said, "Joe, did you find everything he's looking for?" And he's like, "Well, Tim," I said, "Look, Dad, don't step up in front of my gun vault and let me give you the combination to it. Do not tear nothing up at my house. If I come in that house and y'all ransack the place, there's going to be hell to pay because you're there for stupid reasons." And Joe even admitted, "Yeah, I know, Tim. I don't want nothing to do with it. I volunteered to come to your house because I knew you." And I said, "Hey, I respect that, and I respect Joe Carter to this day. I have no hard feelings towards Joe." And he went from a gun safe. I gave him the combination to it. You know, there's nothing in there, but
That way they're not bashing the
yeah,
glass in and
don't
stuff.
break nothing. That's why I put my dog up. I had a little winter dog, put him in the bathroom, and I left the back door open so they didn't break my door. And Joe said, he said, "Well, I knew you was just here because the hood of your car was hot." I said, "Yeah, y'all parked on the side of the road. I seen you." He said, "Well, we've got some warrants." I'm like, "Okay, but I'm not coming down there today." I said, "I'll take care of them first thing in the morning. No problem at all." I said, "Y'all do your thing. Leave my house alone. Don't break nothing. Leave a clear inventory for me on the bar." Okay. And he did. And to Joe's, credit. He did. They didn't tear up the house. Whoever dealt with whatever the property they took, which was mainly, I mean, I'm in the computer business essentially. At that time, I did a lot more forensics than I do now. They took a bunch of old crap that was just junk computers. You know, there were a lot of waste of time. But they
Because when you say leave a clear inventory, that's what you wanted, a detailed list of.
yeah. So you're leaving inventory of what was taken from the search warrant. So they were there with a search warrant. Well, I knew they wasn't going to find nothing because I didn't have nothing. I didn't own no games. I didn't own no game rooms. But I knew it had to do with games because they had already ran a warrant I was called about earlier that morning. And Joe confirmed that. So anyway, I'm really pissed now. Tonda Curry has greenlighted this. And this is 100% malicious prosecution for political gain. I got the T-shirt long before Donald Trump did.
Remind me again, what year was this? Set the
This
tone.
was June the 23rd, 2019. So I got my T-shirt for malicious prosecution before President Trump did. So the next morning, no big deal. Walked into the sheriff's office, walked in, walked out, and now the fight's on. Let's throw down. So, of course, working for attorneys, I knew right who to call. And I called some attorneys out of Dallas. And I didn't call Buck Files because Buck is more of a father figure to me and a mentor. And
He's going to get emotionally involved in
yeah,
this thing.
exactly. So I called, and there were some other guys that I'd been consulting for. One of them had been arrested too. So, or he turned himself in the next day, him and one of his friends. And I don't even know what their relationship was business wise. I don't know to this day exactly what their business was. But anyway, so I called the guys in Dallas, Toby Shook, Chris Mulder, those guys up there, and told them what's going on. Of course, they head down here and they hammer Tonda. Now, Tonda, she can't deny any of this. She did a news press release. She got on KOTV and just sung all the praise in the world to Dale Corbett and his people. But what she didn't tell everybody was everything they put in the affidavits was wrong. It was total BS. They went judge shopping, meaning that they knew a Zandt County judge wasn't going to sign their warrant. They tried to get Smith County, because I lived in Smith County. They tried to get Smith County DA's office involved. Then no judge over there would help because their affidavits were junk. They were totally fabricated. They didn't meet the elements of a crime. It was very obvious that it was bullshit. So Mike Bates, who was one of the minions, used to work in Kaufman County. Mike Bates goes to a Kaufman County judge, asks him to sign it and give some lie about what was really going on. That judge is the one who signed it. So you're judge shopping, trying to find one that will actually agree to sign the things. Well,
One that somebody had a relationship
that's right.
with.
That's right. A personal relationship with. So the attorneys immediately cut Tonda to shreds. Tonda, not only within just a few months, not years, but just within about 90 days, Tonda had to dismiss everything. She had to return everything. She even had to return all the games that they seized from the game rooms. It was that bad. Never in my career did I ever seize anything I had to return like that. But it was so stinking clear. Now they thought they were going to get their 15 minutes of political fame, which is exactly what Tonda Curry just did a few weeks ago. Tonda went out and she raided this smoke shop and did this big press release. That's just a political game that they play. You know, they need to get a bang for their buck. They need to get in the headlines like they're really working and really doing something to try and get the voters thinking, hey, they're really working. We need to support that. But it backfired on Dale and Tonda tremendously when they came after me.
So let's stop for a sec. I love the fact that you brought that up because, again, to reiterate, I got some emails about you saying, hey, ask him about this. He was arrested. He's got an axe to grind. You answered that, obviously, in spades and
If somebody says
simple. But, hey, I want to go back to this judge shopping. how common is it under any circumstance to have an outside judge issue a warrant for the county that you're the DA in? Is that how business is done?
No. There's some legal reasons that you might do that from time to time, but in this case
Privacy
here, it was
issues.
100% from malicious prosecution. And the irony is, Mike Bates did it again right before Joe Carter's term was over. Him and another deputy did it again in Kaufman County. Judge Martin caught him on it. And I believe that they're on a Brady list now where they can't even testify in court because they went and lied to a judge.
That's wild.
Yeah, it
This is
is.
wild.
And Texas doesn't have a uniform Brady list. We need one, but we don't have one. I pushed for it for years. And a Brady list is essentially officers who can't be trustworthy because they've been untruthful at some point in their career, even on an internal affairs thing. So after we just beat the brakes off of Tonda, and then everything got dismissed, everything got expunged. Legally, by law, I do not ever have to ever admit that I ever even had that occur to me. But again, I'm not hiding nothing whatsoever.
Yeah, kudos to you because I did my research. And I think it's crazy that you said it was all dismissed because the pomp and circumstance, they had you and a bunch of other mugshots all over
Oh,
KLTV.
yeah.
I'm guessing there was no closing press
No,
conference.
there's never a closing press conference. They didn't really care, I don't think, in the beginning. They knew they were going to lose the cases. They knew that they would not hold up in court. They just wanted to get that splash in the media, like they done something.
And your
And
face.
in the process, yeah, I was the main target to shut me down.
And this was done after you had already
After the
gotten
robbery,
the judge in Smith County out of
that's
office,
correct.
right? So,
And after I'd done confronted them about the robbery and the FBI thing, this is how they come to shut me up. Well, it didn't work. All it did was motivate me more. So after that all got dismissed, everything's expunged. I have nothing on my record whatsoever. And I still testify in state and federal court. Legally, I never have to admit that ever happened. But, the thing is, I was innocent in all of it. And if you're innocent, you don't mind making it clear you're innocent. Now, some of my haters, they say, oh, he was arrested. Yeah, that sounds good, buddy. But that's all you're getting out of it
where's that
because it's
conviction?
expunged. It's
Yeah.
nothing there. And
Well,
the ones that called you and probably text you or whatever, say, ask him about this. If they were police officers, it's more than likely they dislike me from my time at the DA's office because I'm the one that had to go tell them you're doing shitty work. What you're doing isn't right. And you've got to learn how to be a police officer. Now, I don't mix words and I don't want nobody to mix them on me, So,
well, for those that want to keep sending in info, you haven't heard your name or anyone's name that has given me info mentioned,
no,
but
no.
it wasn't lost on me, and it was important. And I hit
And I
you.
don't even want to know who sent
Yeah,
it.
I
It
wouldn't.
serves no purpose.
Yeah, I wouldn't tell you. But
No,
I researched you on my own, and so when I went back to find out, obviously I saw the mugshots. You've now explained it. I told you
yeah.
I wanted you to explain it here, so I had an
And
authentic
I have no
reaction.
problem with that.
Uh, the one thing I found was that you sued someone after and it was dismissed. So that's where I found it was all dismissed. So that's good enough for me. And
Yeah,
what you
well,
said,
and see what I did after that was an attorney that I work for in Tyler, do work with. We filed a 1983 civil rights lawsuit against Zandt County. And the reason I did that wasn't for financial gain whatsoever. It was to get rid of the minions, get them out of law enforcement. And everything came together and worked. Everybody involved in the malicious prosecution of Tim McLemee in 2019 are no longer in law enforcement. They're all gone. So I got the last laugh out of that. You may have got a pretty picture of me, but I got your job. And then everything was non-suited. I love Van Zandt County. Our family's been here since the 1800s. I know how tight the money's always been. It's never been about money. If it's about money, I never would have went law enforcement over here.
so Dale Corbett was the
Dale
sheriff
lost
at
his
the time.
election.
He lost
He
reelection.
lost his
The
reelection.
minions are gone.
That's right. All
The only
minions are
one
gone.
left
Is Tonda Curry.
is Tonda Curry.
That's correct.
And you believe, according to a letter that you put out publicly, you think that she sucks and she needs to go, and not necessarily by the election process, you think she should resign on her own.
Yes, and let me make it very clear to everybody too. Take away the 2019 event with me. Not even using that, the malicious prosecution and how we prevailed and proved that, they were lying. Take that out of the equation. I have a laundry list of other things that Tonda Curry has done that is so stinking unethical, and some of it is technically criminal. In my opinion, Tonda Curry has a pay to play going on, and it's really not rocket science. If you open your eyes and you pay attention, who does she protect the most? Now, as a DA, you should only be protecting the victims and the witnesses, but not Tonda. She don't just protect her donors, she protects whoever her donors instruct her to. Now, I'm not going to put people's names out there. I'm not going to do it, but I'm not going to name the donors. Those names are going to come up, I'm fairly confident.
I think they already have started coming
I'm
out.
sure I've read some of their names have come up, but you're not going to see them from me. And that's for various reasons. But Tonda Curry, in my opinion, runs a pay to play system. If you donate that woman enough money, she will be your hatchet. She will go out in the field and play police on your behalf. If your family is accused of a crime, now hear me out on this. If your family member is accused of a crime that she should be prosecuting, why is she at that person's home? She's not an investigator. They're not cooperating with law enforcement. But if you give her enough money, even when a family member is accused of something, she's going to make a house call. So there's so many things that are just so unethical about her unethical prosecution. If you donate enough money to her, she will aggressively prosecute whoever you point out to her. Say, for example, son-in-laws, ex-son-in-laws, two of them. And off the news, off the recording here, I'll give you the two son-in-laws' information. They'd love to tell their story, but I'm not going to name them for various reasons. But she aggressively prosecute two of them, but not a family member of the donor. To me, that's totally against everything a district attorney should be. The 11 years I was at the district attorney's office, we had zero scandals. And I think that's one of the main things that if anybody takes away from anything today, the 11 years I was at the DA's office, 10 years under Leslie Pointer Dixon, who was an amazing prosecutor. I mean, Leslie Pointer Dixon is absolutely the very best prosecutor I've ever had the honor to work with. I learned more from Leslie Pointer Dixon in 10 years than I could have learned in 40 working at a sheriff's department. Leslie Pointer Dixon was not just a prosecutor, she was an educator. Every day you learn something. And then Chris Martin, very aggressive prosecutor. And out of the 11 years, we had zero scandals. We had none of this crap we see with Tonda because neither one of them would cross that line. It was, and I'll give you a good example of Leslie Pointer Dixon. It's very common in law enforcement. As an investigator, you wear a gun and badge. So it's very common in law enforcement that you go out to eat, they're going to want to try and give you a discount. They may try and give you a free food. You go into a convenience store, they're going to give you, a free soft drink, whatever. If you were an investigator for the Zandt County DA's office under either one of them, Dixon or Martin, we could not so much as take a free fountain drink. And I loved it.
They want the optics to be transparent.
Absolutely.
No, it can be like, hey, I got you back for, a year's
Absolutely.
worth of fountain drinks.
I guarantee you, dozens of times in the 11 years, I'd be out eating lunch with other police officers, and all the other officers would get a discount or get free food. And I'd have to tell them, no, I pay full price. I pay just like John Doe right there does. And I love that. I like that because that does set you apart. That's the level of ethics that you have to have.
Well, it sets. I've never worked in the DA's office, but I'm assuming it sets the tone. If the DA is going to mandate that, that means there's no other bullshit going
That's
on.
right.
If you
Absolutely.
can't accept a free soft drink,
Nope. No, I
what?
couldn't even take a free fountain drink. If Leslie or Chris would have known I took a free fountain drink, they would have hung my hide. It was that important. And yeah, a lot of people that was around back then, they heard Leslie and I, we fought and argued all the time, but we did it because I was always the devil's advocate on the case, or she was. And when you put those minds together where you're pushing each other, you get great prosecutions. I guarantee you this. And I think I have all the documents. I'm not sure. I haven't had time to do it because I still have to work and make a living. Um, I believe that the year 2000, which was be the first complete year I was at the DA's office, I went there in the spring of 99, is March or May of 99. So starting from January the 1st, 2000 to the end of December, I guarantee you the year 2000, we obtained more indictments and more convictions than Tonda Curry has done any year she's been in office. That was 25 years ago. God, it's hard to believe it was that long ago.
And I'd love to verify that. Let me ask you this: what do you attribute that to? Like, what is the big reason that there aren't any prosecutions going on now, or as many, as you say? One of her current opponents in the DA's race has been a court-appointed attorney for some of these cases. I think I did some research, and he's been beating her.
Right.
And in fact, he told her that to her face in the debate, which was interesting to me because I'm interviewing him tomorrow for the podcast, and I believe he's going to come at me with some numbers. But for the record, I also want Tonda to come on here. I've sent an email. I'm hoping that she will come on here and be able to explain herself, because my job here is to get information and put it through a filter and see what I think is factual or not. Now, I know we have a lot of opinion about Tonda being inefficient or horrible DA. I want to get back to something that's actually factual, and it's the genesis behind me reaching out to you and saying, "Hey, you want to come on?" Was the letter you posted, and that's how you really came into the public consciousness recently. Take me in. Why did you post that letter? Because, in all fairness to Tonda, because I'm trying to keep it, just trying to figure things out. That was something that happened about 16 years ago. Now that does not absolve her from that. That's what one of the people that messaged me said. That letter was from Tonda 16 years ago. So tell the people what that letter was about and what it shows. And it may not matter how long ago it was.
Well, and it doesn't matter. But let me touch on one thing about Tonda
Go for
in that debate. And it's a good example of how disingenuous Tonda is. The night or at that debate up there on the 17th, she popped off and she said that she prosecuted these game rooms and these game owners in 2019. And she left it at that. What she didn't tell anybody was every one of those cases she had to dismiss. She had to throw them all out because that's the same ones that I was talking about earlier that affected me. She didn't win a single case. Every case was thrown out, was dismissed because it had to be, and everybody that I know of had the records expunged, and she had to give back even the games to the game room owners. She stood up there and she told the people of Zandt County, like she's patting herself on the back, I prosecuted this in 2019. Well, finish the statement, Tonda Curry. The end of the statement is it was malicious prosecution to begin with, used for political gain only. You had to dismiss every one of those cases. They got expunged. They're not on anybody's records because it was malicious prosecution. And not only did you have to give back everything, you had to give back the actual games that you said were illegal.
So instead of using just a mere arrest as a badge of honor, it should be more as an embarrassment, a black eye on the DA's office for
Absolutely.
basically she could have ruined your life and ultimately and the others'
She
life.
attempted to.
And ultimately it turned out that it was, I use the word bullshit loosely, but it sounds to me if all that was dismissed, all this stuff was returned, you're telling me that was a hollow case at best.
It was malicious prosecution for political gain. On my part, they were trying to shut me up because I'm going to bow up and I'm going to carry the fight to them, just like I'm doing her.
Why not sue the county after the fact?
Well, that's what I did. I did 1983, the civil rights lawsuit after the fact, and we achieved our objective in it.
Your goal was to scare them off and make them
To get rid of the bad actors
right.
that are willing to lie and fabricate evidence on an innocent person for political gain. You don't do that for any reason.
But beyond that, technically, do you believe that you could have sued the county for a lot of money and won?
Oh, absolutely. If I would have went with like Scott Palmer, a 1983 attorney I know in Dallas, or even the same law firm that pulled the $20+ million out of Wood County, Tonda Curry is going to, in my opinion, cost Van Zandt County tens of millions of dollars in a civil rights lawsuit. It's not if, it's when, and how bad is it going to be. And Van Zandt County stands to lose more than Wood County did. And I think $20+ million is plenty to lose.
Now, the Wood County case, I noticed you brought that up in your letter. I had actually known about that case, and I'm trying to put together a podcast on it now. I actually know the former, or I don't know him, met the former sheriff in that. So it's interesting because here's the thing that sticks out to me. The taxpayers ate that.
Yes.
$23 million.
Yeah, what he ended up with, he got a judgment of $900,000 against him.
Yeah, the sheriff was personally up for 900, but I want to get into the weeds on that one. I'll probably get you back about that because that one is absolutely crazy. And when I've heard the facts and looked it up, it makes you think they really did that. They really tried to get away with it. They did. And in fact, it cost the Wood County taxpayers 20-something million dollars. And you're saying you're being preemptive here and saying, hey, if you don't want one to come on your doorstep in Van Zandt County, we need another candidate. You're not hiding the fact that you don't want her to be reelected.
No, absolutely. I can't be any more clear about my dislike towards Tonda Curry. And it's just so many different things that she's done. We haven't even, we're at the tip of the iceberg with Tonda Curry. You could dedicate half a week to nothing but Tonda Curry.
Well, I do want to get back to that.
The judgment. Okay. So the judgment that I referred to in there is there was a case up near Texarkana where a husband and wife, the husband's actually an attorney. They got charged with some crazy offense up there.
I Googled it. Yeah, a crazy case.
Did you see where it was dismissed and then they turned around and sued people and everything?
I think in the non-legal way to explain it is these people let someone down on their luck move on to their ranch. A female who was going through a divorce, she turns around and says the couple basically raped her. And I believe at this time she probably sought Tonda out for counsel. And ultimately, beyond that, this guy was exonerated and turned around and won millions of dollars against the complainant and the DA's office, I believe.
Correct. So Tonda Curry was neck deep in that scandal. And I've spoke to this gentleman, the attorney up there. I've spoke to him a couple of times. So that all started in, I believe, 2010. They paid Tonda Curry $40,000 to represent them. For $40,000, they didn't even get a phone call. She just went dark on them. She hit the wind. Now, let me ask you this. If you or I would have taken $40,000 from an individual to do a job, and we didn't even show up for the job, we're going to jail, aren't we?
Right.
Are we not going to be charged with that theft? Absolutely we are. The only reason Tonda wasn't charged with theft is because she's an attorney and she knows how to manipulate the system. That's my opinion, and I believe the documents support it.
So let's get into the weeds on that. She knew how to navigate or circumnavigate being accountable because there was a judgment handed down saying you owe these people
That's correct.
40 grand. So how did she go? My research says she ultimately had to pay it in 2020. Okay. Some of it. So how did she avoid being accountable this entire time?
Because no one was going to, no DA, the DA that had jurisdiction up there wasn't going to prosecute her for it. It's easy for them to say, hey, it's civil, it's a contract dispute. Now, if we sign a contract for me to build you a $40,000 garage and I don't even show up, That's not civil. That's criminal. I'm going to jail for stealing your $40,000. However, Tonda, in her typical, in my opinion, Tonda fashion, she manipulated enough up there where she avoided criminal prosecution. But whenever the man and his woman sent her a demand letter saying, "Hey, we want our money back. You did nothing for us," she never paid them. She made that man and his wife file a lawsuit against her to try and get the money back. She still didn't pay them. And per this man, as it rocked along, he had communication with her, and it was going to be around she was living in Zandt County at the time, I believe. So it would have been probably 18, 19, 20, somewhere in there. The judge in Smith County had not done a writ of execution. A writ of execution is essentially, it's kind of like a two-part thing. Most of them are. The ones I was involved in were, you'd go out, you'd inventory a person's property, and you do an inventory for items worth essentially the value of the judgment. You report that back to the court. The court then orders you to go back out and seize such property and then give them to the victim. Per this man, and he told me this story twice, Tonda Curry didn't have the money to pay. She done spent the $40,000, which is another ethical problem. She should have took the $40,000 retainer and put it over into a specific account that attorneys use. And as they work off of that, as they work on the case, they draft the money out of the retainer fee. Okay. But in her case, she took the money and I guess she spent it because she didn't have the ability to pay him back. Had she done it properly, the money would have still been sitting in this account, and she would have just been able to write him a check.
Because that turned out to be a high profile case. So she's going to need experts,
Yeah,
fixers, all these people that
That's
should have
correct.
came out of that's what
Yeah,
you're
that's
saying.
correct. But she did none of that. So how she settled, per the victim, how she settled over half the value of that loss, she had that man come to her home and she'd give him her gun collection. She's that hard up. This is our DA, is having to give away her own property to satisfy judgments. Now, I don't know how anybody can say that's not unethical for a prosecutor.
Did you know this info, or did this previous or this fall into your lap? Either way,
Do what now?
did you know this info about her well in advance of posting it, or did it fall into your lap this cycle?
After Tonda Curry pulled that crap with me in 2019, I have been waiting, and I've owned that website, and there was no sense in putting anything out there till she had an opponent. People say, well, why are you waiting till now? Well, what else was I going to do with it? Throw it up on the website and give her years to prepare for it before she has an opponent? That would be dumb. So I have sat on it, and I have collected a massive amount of information on Tonda Curry. What we've talked about is just the tip of the iceberg.
And I like to deal in facts. That's why I like to deal with the fact that you pulled. If you haven't seen the letter that Tim put out publicly and by publicly now it's Facebook and on the website,
On the
he doesn't go on and on and on. He lets the court documents decide it, and it's how I look these people up, and I know that they were in an unbelievable fight for their life. Let's say all that is true, and she did do that. That would have been that would have been a career defining moment for her if she's the one that gets them out of it, because if you read the charges, it looks like this guy's in deep shit.
Yeah.
He's going to jail, and he fought for his life.
Correct.
And so he got, I heard that they had gotten the same story you told. I heard that she had to give up some of her gun collection.
Absolutely.
So
But then she still didn't finish it. She still owed him money.
well, how does that work?
To pay him the difference. So just for the sake of this conversation, if she owed him $40,000 and she gave him $20,000 worth of guns, then she still owes him $20,000. And there was an agreement made for her to go in and pay the rest of it. She never paid the rest of it. He had to, and here's the funny thing, you have to redo those every 10 years, the type of lien of judgment he had. About a month before that judgment expired, which would have let her off the hook, essentially, just keeping it simple here, I called him. because I had an alarm set on my computer for the month before that thing expired. And it popped up one day at the office. I done totally forgot about it. I get this notice pop up on my computer. It said Tonda judgment. Oh, okay. I got to check it. I went to the website. It was still open. She still hadn't taken care of it. Now the man already had had the gun collection, allegedly. So I called him. I'm like, hey, bud, this is Tim again. You know, we've talked before. Your deal's about to expire in Smith County. And he's like, oh shit, I got it. We're doing it right now. Thank you for calling. He did like that. Within 24 hours, he had filed whatever he needed to file to keep it alive, which is why it pushed into the 2020s. Had he not done that, then he would have lost his ability to continue to collect. So I cost Tonda Curry probably at least $20,000 for that one phone call.
Yeah, I'm not laughing at Tonda's situation here. What I do think is crazy is that, well, your tenacity, but when people say, oh, he's just got an axe to grind, you've said that on here. You said you did, and that definitely proves it. So I wonder if she knows that.
She does now. I don't care if she knows or not.
Hopefully she's gonna come on here and counter, because
even if she comes on,
either way, I want to offer her the opportunity. But let me ask you this. Do you think it's common in the occupation of lawyer that they're sued and have a lot of judgments and disgruntled clients? Do you think that's commonplace?
I work for attorneys. She's the only one I've ever seen do that. Now I've seen attorneys get into, disagreements over their billing with clients or something, but I've never seen another attorney just flat not do the work and not return the retainer.
Did she not show up for the judgment hearing? Is that what it is?
Yeah, she didn't do anything.
So the judge basically gives her a chance to show up. She doesn't.
The judge sends a writ of attachment over to go attach her property, which at the time, no one at Van Zandt County Sheriff's Department was going to go out there and do that, because now she's the DA. That's why you don't see a return on that.
It's a slippery slope.
It's a very slippery slope. And I forgot to tell you one thing about Tonda. The night that Dale Corbett lost the election, I get a text from Tonda. Of course, I still have all the texts. I get a text from Tonda. Now, and she says, hey, I'm proud this is all, I'm summarizing. Since this is all over, can you and I sit down and bury the hatchet? So I'm thinking about it. And I remember very clearly, I called my son. He's an officer in the Marine Corps. He's a lieutenant in the Marine Corps at the time. And I called him and I run the scenario past him. He knew everything's going on. And he's like, yeah, hear her out. If you feel comfortable with it, go do it. So I said, okay. So I told Tonda, I'll meet you only in Tyler at Buck Files' office. Buck knows both of us. Buck's a mutual friend. And he would have no problem with it. So I called Buck obviously earlier. And I said, hey, do you mind this? He's like, absolutely. Y'all come on. It'd be good for both of you. Y'all try and bury the hatchet. Buck's a peacemaker. People don't realize that. He really is. So we meet at Buck Files' office in Tyler, and we sit down. And she said, I don't want this recorded, this conversation recorded. I'm like, okay, I got you. Now, she lied to me so many times before, I'm fixing to tell her my first lie. I told her I wasn't recording it, and I did. We have a 2-hour conversation. I recorded the whole thing. Her stories are all over the place. Just total bullshit. But, okay, sake of peace.
Because it's best for you to be harmonious with the sitting DA, right?
I need to have a working relationship in any county I go into. So, on Buck's advice, on my son's advice, I'm going to bury the hatchet. Like, all right, it's over. Just move forward. It wasn't a month later, she dug that hatchet up and she chunked it right at me again. And it's like, and she did it in the presence of a man who was texting me the whole time she was talking. Who happened to be the sheriff at the time, Steve Hendricks. He was there. He heard the conversation.
Steve Hendricks, who you mentioned previously, you supported.
That's right.
In the race, and that's why you got south with her.
She ran off. She threatened and intimidated that man to the point he left Van Zandt County to keep from being arrested after he seen what happened to me and what she did to another deputy. And I don't blame him. She's the most vindictive prosecutor I've ever seen in my career. And trust me, I know I've got a bullseye on my back by it, but she knows I'm going to fight.
You're going to have a
You
bigger
better
one
fight
now.
hard.
From all 150 people that watch my YouTube
Right.
series.
We're going to get them numbers up.
We're going to get them up.
That's right.
Those are rookie
I like
numbers.
to, probably because it's about Zandt County. It's where we need to start. But anyway, so back to the leaning judgment thing we was talking about with her. It took that man over a decade to be made whole. And I think that there was like $4,000 something in interest or something the court awarded him. So I think the final amount was like $44,000.
Has the gentleman been made whole again?
It's my understanding that whenever she sold a piece of property or something and finally made it correct, because I don't see it whenever I looked at it, it looks like it's been finalized. And I haven't spoke to him this cycle while I've been messing with her. I already know, his answers on everything. And I don't want to keep bringing it up. He had a rough time through all of that.
Right.
When he's fighting for his life, he hires somebody that's supposed to protect him and his wife, and they take advantage of him and essentially defraud him. And that fraud is the word used in the lawsuit. I didn't come up with that word. In the lawsuit that he filed against Tonda, and she clearly lost, had to pay, which in my opinion means he proved she was a fraud. Don't take my words for it. Read the document.
Yeah.
It says fraud.
And that's why, like I said, I latched on and contacted you because just from doing, I mentioned I have very few viewers, and that's true, but just from the very few viewership I have, I get emails all the time wanting to throw her under the bus or the barbecue guy under the bus. Obviously, some since you came into my orbit and have we put out that we were doing a podcast. But I always say, hey, what can you hit me with? Because I don't want to get sued. What can you hit me with factually? You came out with an actual judgment, a court order. That may be enough of a bullet in the gun to make some people dissuade some people from voting for her. But I want to play devil's advocate for a second. Let's say that provably, obviously you have an opinion of her. You've dealt with her. Some of stuff that we could never know. We could never fully know the scope of what all's going on. The thing that does stand out to me is that you and the guys were arrested, then it was dismissed, and then now it's being used as kind of a badge of honor. That stinks to me all the way around from top to bottom about her. Now the judgment letter, that's another, not a good look. Is that enough of info, negative info or information about Tonda to keep her, in your opinion, out of being reelected when you compare her to the two opponents that she's running against? One guy, the guy from Connecticut, is it Joseph? I've reached out to him about coming on. He's not declined. The other guy's coming in tomorrow.
I've met Joseph, and Joseph is a nice man. And I think his heart's in the right place. I think he'd be better suited in a different capacity because he has no criminal prosecution or criminal defense history, and neither in Texas either, nor up north. So to me, and I understand his position that he'd hire somebody, but everybody I know, whenever you're going into trial, you're going to that courtroom, especially if you have murders, capital murders, nasty sexual assault cases, robberies, violent crimes. People want to see the district attorney they elected go in there and prosecute that case. Now, some arguments might be, well, you never see the Dallas County DA doing that or the Tarrant County DA, but you do. They will be in that courtroom. I was in a murder case in Dallas County, and the Dallas County DA came in there and was in that courtroom and helping. Was he the primary prosecutor? No, first assistant was, which is common. In Smith County, she harps on she was a former Smith County prosecutor. You have any idea how many Smith County prosecutors there are? There's everything from baby prosecutors right out of law school up to career prosecutors.
I thought she just got an endorsement from Matt Bingham, a former
Yeah,
He's a former DA, right?
absolutely. And Matt and I are good friends, and I do not hold any ill will towards Matt for supporting her. He has the absolute right to do so. Matter of fact, Buck Files had, before she had an opponent even announced, she had asked Buck about a donation. He agreed. He come to me. He said, "Look, I agree." I said, "Buck, I'd be upset with you if you didn't, follow through with your word. If you told her you was going to do it, then you, by God, you do it. I'm totally fine with that. I'm a big boy. I'm above all that petty crap. If you told her you're going to support her, then give her the money. But
Yeah,
I'm not going to beat her no matter how much money you give her.
Yeah, I don't like anybody trying to tell me who I can or can't be friends
Absolutely.
with
I'm not about
because I'm not always right and maybe I hold grudges. I understand what you're saying. Hey, you do you, I'll do me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we have to be like that. We have to be mature adults about it, or our system totally fails across the board. And it's already bad enough in our nation with our
Right.
politics, but that's another podcast for me.
Well, yeah, and we definitely need to get together again. But let me ask you this. We've talked about your personal interaction with her. You've shown some facts about her. Where does this go from here? What are your intentions? You want to see this through all the way to the election to try to dissuade people? What are the next steps without giving away all your secrets?
Of course, I have a lot more that I can publish and put out there. But I do have a life and I have to make a living. I'm like everybody else nearly. I have bills to pay. So I don't have a ton of time to sit and mess with a website. So I will continue to put stuff up there. Um, I'm considering putting that 2 hour conversation I had with her up. Um, there's a bunch of gibberish in there, so I need time to cut it down and get rid of the, irrelevant stuff on it. But it's my opinion that Tonda Curry meets the criteria for a removal hearing, ballot box or not. And I have an attorney out of Austin, based on some of the evidence that I possess that I've not even brought up yet. We both believe that we can get a petition filed before a judge. And the way that new law is, so I think it's in 23, they called it the rogue DA law. And our state legislature put in the law in place where you now have a procedure to remove an elected DA. And it's been attempted and it's been successful in one or two. I am determined that regardless, now I'm going to give the ballot box obviously the opportunity to take care of the problem.
Or let's be honest, do you think coming on and here and your own website and all that, do you think that it might influence her just to drop out rather than face what you believe is the music?
Honestly, if she was smart, she would. Why, if she had a little ounce of decency left in her, a little ounce of ethics left in her, then she would just simply say, "Hey, I'm pulling out of the election. I'm going to finish my term up. I'm going back to private practice." I could respect that, and I'd probably sit down and shut up as long as she left people alone, myself included. Go do your job or try and do your job for the next 8, 10 months, whatever it is, and then go off in the dark in the sunset. Go be a defense attorney again if you want to be. But the thing about that is she's got a guaranteed paycheck every month here. When you're in private practice, you don't have that guaranteed paycheck.
Right. Yeah, it's
Obviously, she got money problems because she can't pay back people that give her a retainer a decade.
Yeah, and I love, like I said, I'd love to be able for you, Tana, to be able to address this specific case because there are documents that we've now all seen. Let's shift gears just for a minute to some stuff that is related to Tonda, and then we'll finalize this thing and get out of here because I know we have more to do later on in another podcast. Who do you want to be the district attorney? Who are you voting for? Well, you live in Smith County, but
No, I live in Van Zandt.
You do. If you live in Van
I
Zandt,
moved back over here 2 years ago.
who are you voting for DA?
I've got to support Richard Schmidt. I worked for Richard at the DA's office. Richard's very intelligent. And I respect him because he's an Army veteran like yourself. He worked his way through college. He'll tell you all this, through the GI Bill. Same as my son, the one that's an officer in the Marine Corps. He's got a semester left in law school. The GI Bill is paying for it. So, I have a lot of respect for people that work themselves up. They work all the way up. I feel like I did starting at a jailer at 19 years old and then being where I am today. That didn't come easy, but Richard's worked his way up. He's a very, very good prosecutor. He's intelligent. He's extremely quick. And I think a lot of people do not realize that with him. And it will be a mistake if you try and outwit him. He is extremely quick witted. And that is extremely important in the courtroom. But, again, Joseph's a nice guy, but Joseph's, in my opinion, if he wants to be a DA, he needs to start practicing some criminal law. But Richard is definitely the one. And Richard worked under Leslie Pointer Dixon. So he worked under the teacher and he worked under Chris Martin. And matter of fact, one of the best examples of Richard is a case with him and Chris Martin both. And Pat Burnett, the sheriff at the time, and I were just talking about this the other night. We have a missing person out towards 3080, 316, down towards Coffin County, same Maybank area out in there. And we get there, and I was one of the first ones at the location. All we had was about 3 or 4 little drops of blood, and we lied not to seen them. We had to really search, but they were at a door. That was it. We had no eyewitnesses, nothing. A lady lived by herself there, and no neighbors could see her house from where she lived. So we have a missing person with only a few drops of blood. And over the next 24, 48 hours, we're running search warrants and we're working on things, and we key in on a neighbor based on some comments made by other neighbors. There was this guy that was real strange. And we go to see him, and we're keyed in on him. We're like, okay, he matches everything as a good suspect. So, and I did all the search warrants, or I did a bulk of them. There was some more done later, but I did search warrants for the home, and I think even did one for his truck. So we find a little bit, if I recall correctly, we found a little bit of blood in the back of his truck. So we didn't know if it was animal blood. He said it was animal blood. And he had this old rundown farm thing going on. So that's all we had. That's it. We had blood here, blood there, no body. And no admission of guilt. The guy would not talk whatsoever. We have a little bit of blood spatter on it, but not enough to really make it a big issue on it. So using DNA, mitochondrial DNA to be exact, we're able to prove that blood in the house was her blood and it was in the back of his truck. Chris Martin and Richard Schmidt tried that case before a Zandt County jury. They obtained a conviction for murder, and he's doing life. He's going to die in prison.
And never found a body.
We have never found the body. We had no witnesses. All we had was DNA. And a lot of hard work by all the investigators and deputies involved. Smith County Sheriff's Office, they came over and helped with the crime scene. They got a great crime scene unit over there. And they came over and helped us. And then Chris and Richard tried it. And to get a conviction for murder and that type of sentence where the guy's going to die in prison with no body, no witnesses, nothing, it takes a lot. That means that those prosecutors, Richard Schmidt and Chris Martin, they educated that jury. Go back to what I told you earlier. You have to educate the jury. And they didn't just educate the jury on DNA. You have to educate the jury on what is the standard of beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's kind of a big hurdle in the courtroom at times, is getting people to understand at what point do you believe that this person is guilty? And that takes an educator, someone that's going to get up there and talk to the jury and make sure they understand.
So if I'm guessing right, you're using that case as an example to use as juxtaposition against what she's currently losing a sexual assault case.
my
You
God,
said
yeah.
that she had, I believe I looked it up and I heard online she had 20 months to prepare for the case from the time it was originally filed. So you're using that to say, look at the difference here, what they did and what she's doing.
Absolutely. And so, the question is, why Richard? If there's any case that shows what he's capable of doing in the courtroom, is that's the standard that I worked with. under Leslie Pointer Dixon and Chris Martin both. We went in there to win cases, and we got maximum sentences on cases. Did we lose some? Absolutely. Everybody's going to lose a case from time to time. But, and there's another thing. There's a saying in our world: you never get to try the good cases. If you have a very good, strong case against John Doe for a crime,
He's pleading out.
he's pleading out. He's begging, give me an offer. Give me an offer. You normally only go to trial on the tough cases, the bad cases, or the cases where the defendant has nothing to lose. You know, if they're a habitual felony offender already, they're starting at 25 to life.
Roll the dice.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, hey, I might as well take a chance. I'm going to die inside if I take a plea. I might get lucky here. But
So
you gotta have
tenacity,
luck with
knowledge,
this.
and wit all factor in. I mean, because you're going to have the law behind you no matter what, right? But you're saying it's about the messenger and who is applying the law and the work you're
Absolutely.
doing. And I can't wait to get him in here and ask him about it tomorrow, and I'll let him speak on it because he's currently beating her in court a lot. And so I'm like, I want to talk to this guy. What's his motivation? He's winning right now against her. And I'm
Well,
assuming he's running because he sees it firsthand, like she doesn't belong there. But I'll let him say
and
that.
it's not just Richard, his law partner. The two of them together are they're just wearing her out. The not guilty on the continued sexual assault of a child the day before the debate was by Richard's law partner. And I know Richard well enough that yes, he defends defendants, people accused of nasty crimes, and we have to have people to do that, or our entire system fails. Every part of the wheel of our judicial system has to pull their weight, or it totally fails. So we have to have attorneys that would do criminal defense work, but that don't mean that that's what they really want to do. And Richard is a prime example of a criminal defense attorney that's very good at it, but would way rather be a prosecutor. And I think he'll explain that to you tomorrow.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait
Yeah,
to
I'm glad
ask
he's
him.
coming
I
on.
can't wait to
Yeah.
ask him. I reached out to him and he immediately accepted.
Good.
Kudos to him. But
Good deal.
I think I have another question here at the end I was thinking about. And I don't want to mention the guy really by name just because if anybody follows the Zandt County drama, the game rooms are a big question. And someone legally made a donation to her campaign, right? Which you can find online. He made a $5,000 donation last campaign. I don't know what he's done now. I think the reporting was due here recently, and I'm going to try to pull it from the
You need to
county
look at
clerk.
the tax. That's where your money's at. It's not the images.
But and I'd love to get that information too. But that's become the centerpiece of the election for DA for me because the other two candidates were asked, what's one of the first things you'll do if elected, and it was mentioned raid the game rooms. So I want to ask you here, in your opinion, as being someone who's a former consultant for that industry, someone who basically got arrested because of that industry and exonerated and expunged, by the way, are the game rooms operating in Zandt County currently running illegal or legal?
I stay out of the game rooms. So
Fair
I
enough.
don't understand their platforms, exactly which ones they're using or not. And you have to understand the core principle of the game is if it's what I call a one-dimensional, which is very simple, where there's only one thing happening. Maybe, and we can see they use what they call a nudge game in the industry, and a nudge game is where you have one line across the center, and you line up, say, 3 bells on it. But when the reels spin, you have 2 bells, and then you have another one that's either up or down, and you can push a button and move it up or down so you get 3 across. They call that skill. What they leave out is the one that you need to move, the arrow that you should push, is blinking and flashing at you to push it. So even though it's one dimensional, is that truly skill? Because it's telling you push here, push here.
But that sounds like a whole nother podcast,
Yeah,
right?
but my point is that's a one dimensional. So now let's take a game that has multiple things going on, that has a spinning wheel on top, like you see them like the Wheel of Fortune wheels and stuff, and you get these bonuses, and you have all these other features that pop up as a bonus. A bonus is what? Pure chance if it pops up. The user is doing nothing to get a bonus to pop up. All you're doing is pushing the button.
Bonus may have to do with what time you sat down at the machine.
Every one of the machines have some type of random number generator.
So it harkens back to what you said. It stuck with me offline, and you said it today. If there's even 1%
1%
a chance
illegal.
it's illegal. Okay.
Correct.
And so I don't want to put you on the hook by saying who's illegal or who's not, but it's a very interesting dynamic here. I've actually reached out to the owner of those game rooms, David Fox. Nice, cool guy. He said, "Hey, I'd rather not come on." I don't blame him, but
I don't.
I know there are accusations that he's given Tonda money, and all I deal in is facts. All I know is he's given her $5,000 donation, which he's legally not obligated. He's legally okay to do.
Well, he has a right to do.
He has a right to do it. But what I was thinking, with all the attention that these game rooms, just the squeaky wheel gets the grease. It feels like whether she's reelected or not, that there may be someone from a higher power, maybe an AG office, come in here and take a look at these things. Because I see them getting shut down in adjacent counties and all that. So
I read a deal where Mount Pleasant, they shut them down up there. There's something else. One thing I forgot, and I'll send this to you. Remind me. In the emails back and forth to Tonda, going all the way back to 2018, in one of the very first initial emails to her and Chris Martin was the DA at the time, I made it clear to them I'm working as a consultant because there are no consultants in this industry. Now, I'm a forensic guy, so it's my job to understand digital data. And in that email, I explained to them, there is no one that understands these. My objective is to become an expert in these games so I can, either testify in court about them or assist the companies in legal or not legal. So that was the purpose from the very beginning. There's no agency out there. And there's a couple of things about the games, regardless which games they are. You're very limited in who can actually forensically examine the games and prove exactly how they work. It's very, very, very difficult. It takes a lot of computer power to do it.
that's above my pay grade, your
Well,
pay
it
grade
is too.
currently.
And that was my intent, was to learn them. Well, after she pulled that crap on me, I'm out.
I'm
not messing with that part of it again. But and after the fact, then I got out. I'll totally wash my hands of everything to do with it 3 or 4 years ago. I'm done. I won't even work as a consultant. I don't even want to ask questions about them.
Once bitten, twice shy.
Yeah, exactly. And there's some of the individuals involved in that industry, you won't know part of. None. And one thing,
Because it deals with cold hard cash, and that brings out the
lots
worst
of
in
cash,
society, right?
lots of money laundering is legitimate in it. One thing that occurred over in Upshur County, and we'll leave it at this with game part. So Upshur County has legalized games and game rooms under a county ordinance. And by the way, Tonda's county ordinance is totally flawed. You can't force it if you wanted to, but that's another story. So in Upshur County, Homeland Security came in and raided these game rooms.
Recently?
Yes. And matter of fact, the last defendants pled in federal court in December of last year, and they forfeited millions of dollars. And when I tell you millions, there are millions and millions of dollars moving. There's millions of dollars moving through Zandt County right now in games. And any county that's got a bunch of games. But what Homeland Security focused in on was the money and how it was being moved. So to keep it simple and short, anytime you wire money, whether it's a bank wire or the traditional bank wire, or you use Cash Apps, Venmo, anything like that, you're technically getting into that wire fraud under the federal government statutes. So that's how they went after Upshur County, was through wire fraud. What they found is what I found very, very interesting. They traced money from Upshur County, Texas, through Pakistan and India. So actually, if it went from Upshur County to India to Pakistan. Once it got into Pakistan, they then traced it into accounts that they were convinced is support of terrorists in some form or fashion. Now, knowing the background on a lot of these games and the people, the big movers and players, they're not American.
Which differs from the current owners of game rooms in Van Zandt
No,
County.
no, hold on. You don't understand games. They may own the games, but the software vendor is taking a cut. So the software vendor, that's who I was consulting with in the beginning. The software vendor always takes a rake, if you will. And the vast majority of the games reset. A lot of them reset every week, every 2 weeks, whatever. And there's different ways that you communicate with a software vendor to get the games running again. That's how they know how much you pay the software vendor. So essentially, just for the
So if they didn't pay their cut, they could shut them down temporarily.
absolutely, absolutely, they're going to go off and they won't be able to turn them back on because they won't have the code from the vendor. So essentially, they rectify the numbers at say every week, every 2 weeks, however it's set up for them. They rectify the numbers, and then whatever the numbers are, they call the vendor. They give the vendor the numbers. Then they know how much they have to pay the vendor, and then the vendor confirms it. They receive the money. They give them the code. They turn them right back on, and then the code works to turn them back on. And then it's the vendors, software vendors above the people in Van Zandt County that are actually doing the money transfers to foreign countries on it. So a lot of the software you see on games aren't from American companies. They're not from the company in Georgia.
But if I went up the street, American guy, Texan, opened the game room up, technically, depending on who my software provider was, some of that money could end up in a foreign country, ironically being used against the
Absolutely.
U.S. Army, which I actually
Absolutely.
was in before.
Absolutely. And there's a connection to that. And I'll tell you more about that off this.
Right.
I can explain it to you in greater detail.
Yeah, because the games are that's a whole different journey and a whole different day.
But Tonda Curry is not only games. You look at it, look at Tonda Curry, totality of everything she is and has done, going all the way back to her own liens and judgments. And that's not the only lien and judgment. My God, she owned the Yellow Pages, thousands of dollars she did Yellow Page ads, and she never paid them. They've got liens and judgments against her for not paying for your advertising. Just
While in private practice.
yeah, but now once you become a DA, are you not held to a higher standard? Absolutely. We should hold our politicians to a higher standard.
Well, I think that, you answered it, or you mentioned this earlier. She's run unopposed 2 previous times, right? And so if you're unopposed, I believe I'm right on that.
The first time she had an opponent, and the second time she ran unopposed. And
so these things don't come out if you don't have someone across from you.
That's right. That's why people say, "Why is it coming up now? When else was I to bring it up? What purpose would it have served for me to start putting stuff up on tondacurry.com, which I own, 2 years ago? Nothing. It'd give her 2 years to prepare, to counter anything I'm putting up there and come up with one of her bullshit excuses. And I do want to come back eventually and talk about Van Zandt County Courthouse and maybe even the jail.
Yeah, let's do that.
It's big issues.
It's a huge issue.
And I'm all for Paul Michael's building. So
I'm all for progress. I don't think, and this will piss some people off.
Oh, I'm gonna piss people off.
The population explosion that we're about to experience out here because of what's going on in Forney and Terrell definitely means that we're going to have a bunch of growth here. And again, the courthouse is a different podcast.
Yeah.
Last question before we go. Van Zandt County Connect, for those that don't know and for those that even do know, was a big Facebook page, an exchange, if you will, where people were anonymously posting and arguing.
14,000. There's more followers than voters.
That's right. In the initial video I played earlier, the audio clip of the DA was speaking with the administrator of that page who had called her to inquire about it being hacked, and you were mentioned.
Correct.
2 questions. Did you hack it? And the second question, do you think it was really hacked, or do you think it's...
Well, I absolutely did not hack. I'm not a hacker. I have no clue how you would do that. And I've never told anybody that I'm a hacker. Tonda says, well, he says he can get into anything. No. There's a lot of things we can't get into. There's a lot of things the FBI can't even get into right now due to security. And I don't even try. As for do I think it was hacked or not, I don't know. I mean, there's pros and cons to each direction of could have been done, would have been done, who done it. Um, there's more evidence that would be needed for me to form an opinion on.
Right. And I've asked Julie to come on as well, and I've talked with her extensively. I know she maintains it was hacked. It's her baby. Julie, keep fighting. Maybe you'll come up with something. But again, my opinion is it wasn't hacked. It's some technical issue that I think is just not known. But anyway,
I can't form an opinion with that. Doing a lot of examination and research.
I want to grab this hat you brought me.
Yeah, let me plug that real quick. So, my wife and I, we have the Texas Prison and Police Horse Rescue. It's a 501c3, and
Hold that up so they can see
where's
it.
that right here? Okay, and there we go. So we're out of van, outside of van, and we only focus on former prison and police horses. The way I look at it, a lot of those retired prison horses are no different than me. They're just so busted up, used to be has-beens. And, we need to take care of our law enforcement horses just like we do our canine dogs. And in the last 2.5 years, we've rescued some that were in bad places. We've rescued a couple of totally blind, double blind, prison horses that were in kill pens. And, my wife, and all the credit goes to her. She was at the barn working with them whenever I came through this afternoon, coming over here. She's, I believe, at 57 prison and police horses in the past 2.5 years that
Wow.
either we have, and we haven't had all of them on our property. So we're more of a foundation now, and we're growing. We'll have a banquet this year. Is we provide a lot of these horses either through us, or we connect current owners with individuals that are looking for them. They're great. We have them for a lot of PTSD groups, which I'm very passionate about. You can't serve and do what I did for a living without it affects you some. So I'm very passionate about PTSD therapy. So we've got several horses. We probably have 10 or 12 that are doing nothing but PTSD work through different groups in Texas. And we have a lot of therapy horses. I just sent 2 to Magnolia, Texas, to a therapy place for disabled people of all ages. And then we do a lot of them. We kind of have we look for certain groups first or individuals. We like to put the kids on them. We have several of these former prison horses that are being ridden by, kids from say 11 to 15 or 16, and they're winning all these events in the arenas. There's some right here in Grand Saline.
Well, you had my daughter mesmerized before we started filming about she's going to come out and ride.
Absolutely. Come on. We'd love to have them out. My wife's a great teacher and trainer, and we have teamed up with a guy who's become a good friend of mine. We'll tell more about him in the future, but he's a true walking, talking, living American badass that there's tons of documentation about what he's done for the government. And I'll tell you about him whenever we get off the mic.
Well, I love the hat. I appreciate the stories and appreciate all you're doing for horses and animals. My daughter loves horses. She's coming out. Most of all, thanks for coming on here and answering the tough questions, being candid, not trying to shield yourself from one thing I ask you. And I hope to have you back on.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And for anybody that's message you, well, Tim did blah blah. Say, hey, here's his email, here's his cell phone. Call him if you want to talk about it. I have nothing to hide. I'm no angel. Everybody has run afoul in life and stumbled at different times. Nobody's perfect. We all know that.
Well, this interview's opened my eyes because you and I had never met. I've never met you. I think I've seen you at the Dinner Bell and Van before, but I've never met you in person. So I appreciate you coming on. This will be the start, I think, of way more appearances for you because
Absolutely. I'd love to come back and talk about not politics, but Zandt County history. Of course, like I said, our family's been here since the 1800s. And
I'm a Wiley Post. I'm a big Wiley Post
I'm a
fan.
Product of Van ISD. So yeah, 2 + 2 is 5. And let's have
it's
some
6
fun.
over here. Yeah, in Grand Saline.
Y'all got to add one to it. But,
well, I appreciate you coming on, guys. Listen, this is what we talk about when I start this podcast about Van Zandt County politics. I'm glad Tim came on. We've got other visitors coming on. Thank you for tuning in to the Alexander Hour. And this is Tim McLemee.
Very much. Look forward to Richard tomorrow. All right. That'll work.